When do we humans get to Kardashev Type I civilization status? And when do we get to a Kardashev Type II?
So the Kardashev scale, Kardashev Type I civilization is when humans are either catching or generating as much power as what's incident on the Earth from the sun. Type 2 is the next big one where you're catching as much energy from all the way around the sun. So massive amounts of energy. And a lot of times people talk about it as incident, as in you had solar panels the size of the entire planet blocking all of the sun. But I think really you should be thinking about it as what can we generate? What can we make here on Earth? And what we know is that we're only a fraction right now of Kardashev Type 1, and we got some work to do. Um, and and there's not a lot of technologies that can get there, just from the point of view of the fuel.
Okay.
But if, as some research say, that there's 100 million to a billion years of fusion fuel on the Earth, we have room to go, and that's at today's use. So 100 times today's use, we still have tons of fuel. Let's go do it. And what does that unlock? What does it unlock to have power 100 times the output that we actually do here on Earth right now? And I think that's pretty transformational. Do we have those huge AI data centers? Do we have brains that can now think at rapid speeds and now innovate? I think that's a pretty powerful future.
Yeah, I could just imagine a giant AI brain and rockets just constantly uh, shipping more and more humans out into space, into colonizing space, and we're expanding out into the universe. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to be concerned about. It's technology in itself is always a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a concern that we humans, in the power we create, will also destroy ourselves in obvious ways and less than obvious ways. I've been spending a lot of time in nature, and you become distinctly aware that there's something truly special about the simplicity, the balance that is achieved by nature, and in some sense we disturb that balance by creating sophisticated technologies. But in another sense, we're building something in the spirit of nature that's more and more beautiful and allows us humans to flourish in richer and richer ways. So, double-edged sword.
I think a lot about what does vast amounts of low-cost energy, low-cost electricity enable, and how does that work with nature? And if you have power, and this is why one of the reasons we love fusion is that's energy dense. So a 50 megawatt facility, we believe, fits in a 27,000 square foot building on the order of an acre for 50 megawatts. And compare that to solar would be 2,000 acres, at least in Seattle. And what you can do there is transformational. And a lot of folks talk about desalination and clean water so that we can be in places where there's not a lot of water and those things. I actually think about food, ironically, is that how much of the Earth's surface that used to be nature is now farmland. And we need it. Like we're going to grow food because humans need to eat. And that's really critical. But it's about 5 feet tall all over the Earth. Why can't you do it at 500 feet? Why can't you build a building where you're actually growing in the building, you're growing plants? I spend a lot of time thinking about growing plants, ironically, at high densities of food densities so that we can eat and we can exist and we can coexist in a way that's energy dense and rich. You mentioned actually going to space. How do we go to space now? We take methane fuels or hydrogen fuels, and we burn them and we launch a rocket. There's all kinds of cool beamed rocket technologies that I looked at early in my career where you can like beam microwaves. And so you have a microwave craft that doesn't have to burn any fuel. And so if you have really dense, really good power on Earth, you can beam it to that microwave craft. It can now use electricity as its rocket fuel. And so there's some really powerful, interesting things you can do. Even deep space, it gets also more enabling, but even just launching from Earth. And so I think it opens up things we don't really even think about that have just been theorized. Wow, if I had a massive amounts of power in a small place that is low cost, this is what it could do. But I'm excited by what it can unlock that even we can think about now, but even what we can't think about or we don't know yet.